this week at Trinity so folks can.
Okay.
All right, I'm gonna share my screen, start the presentation. Certainly does make it a lot easier doing this when I'm at my computer instead of up on the dais. So I'm going to go through. I have about 10 slides here that will give you an overview of not only how we did in 2020 relative to the budget, but also what our projections are for 2021. I will go in some detail. Just so you know, right now, the way I have my computer set up, I can't see raised hands. So if you wouldn't mind letting me get through this, and then I'll stop presenting and then be able to take any questions. And of course, you can reach out to me afterwards, and then anybody watching this afterwards can reach out to me with any questions. My email address, you can email me at mitchell.jj@pg.com, as in Procter & Gamble. So feel free to reach out if you have any questions on any of this material. So the first thing I want to do is I want to concentrate on what happened in 2020 before we get into 2021. If you followed along in the chimes or any of the updates through the year, you would see that we were tracking better than our budget. Our budget that was passed about a year ago had us projected out with an $85,000 deficit, where expenses outpaced income. We wound up at the year with a $36,000 deficit, so about $31,000, not right, or like $50,000. Something's wrong in that math right there, but that's okay. Versus budget, and we did end the year with a $36,000 deficit, but we also received a PPP loan of $64,000, and if we get that fully refundable, that puts us in a positive cash position for the year. Digging into what happened, $51,000 was the improvement. You can see that income came in about $60,000, $59,000 versus budget. Now, where the changes are, and I go through this every year just to get clear on nomenclature. So we have people who give on a weekly basis. You think about the stewardship season, where we're asking people to pledge. We break those givers into those who have pledged and those who have not pledged. Now, if you haven't pledged, we still make a guess. We can see regular giving patterns. We can see giving patterns because most often it's given in time with a check. It's not cash on the plate. So we track that and we make an educated guess based on that tracking as to where we think folks are going to come in. The two downsides of that is, one, we're guessing, and two, without the ability to remind folks once they've made a pledge, hey, you've pledged to give $5 this year, you've only given $2. If you're in a position to do so to complete your pledge, that would be wonderful. Those two things, especially in times of like last year, give us what you see here, where pledgers missed our pledge by a total of 8%, an aggregate of 8%. Where non-pledgers missed the estimate by an aggregate of 33%. This also accelerated through the year.
Josh, we don't see your slides.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. It says that I'm presenting. Let me try this again. Can you see this?
Yes. Yeah, now it's ready. Yeah.
I apologize. Thank you. I don't know what happened there. Okay, so back on this. You can see, starting up front, pledgers were off by $25,000, which is 8% versus the aggregation of their pledge. And non-pledgers were off by about the same amount, which is an aggregation of 33% versus what that estimate was. So this is my first of a couple requests to please fill out a pledge card, whether you just haven't gotten around to it yet, maybe you just haven't been aware of how to do it because of COVID. You can go to the website, you can call me, you can call Peter, you can call Gary, you can email any of us. There's a lot of different ways that you can fulfill that you can give your pledge. But it's very, very difficult to establish a budget without having a clear understanding of what that giving is going to be. Then we get down into the expenses. Personnel expenses came in $47,000 lower So $47,000 better when you think about net deficit position versus budget. And that's because we had budgeted at the time of the budget for an associate. And clearly we haven't had an associate within there. So that was help that we come through. Physical resources were better by $30,000. That's a variety of different things. One of the biggest items in there is that we did budget for the organ repair, but the organ repair was later funded via an outside donation. So we don't record that then in the income statement. We record it in another place. But then there were other helps that came through, snow removal, obviously less people in the building, et cetera, meant that we didn't spend as much on physical resources as we had anticipated. Administrative, a lot of that is administrative savings from not being in the office on a regular basis, printing, mailing, et cetera. Formation, we weren't in church, so there was a lot in formation that wasn't spent. Same with music and worship. Financial resources came in better on a number of different areas. One of the bigger ones within there was their audit was less than anticipated. We always budget for a little bit of contingency. That always falls out as savings. And then we have a couple of other items in aggregate that ended up being more expensive than they were anticipated. So in total, our expenses were $109,000 lower than we had budgeted for. So that's a total change of $50,000, lower income, but lower expenses. Now note that as we had been providing updates throughout the year in the chimes, this $50,000 help or improvement versus the budget is about $25,000 worse than anticipated. One of the biggest reasons why the main things that changed is that personnel and physical resources expenses actually continued to come in lower than we were anticipating. I think my last major update was in September because everything just happened towards the end. It's difficult to give regular updates. But then income came in worse because that gap that we saw in non-pledging giving relative to budget heightened or accelerated through the year. So those two things, a lot of that non-pledging, some of the pledging, but a lot of that non-pledging hurt came in towards the end of the year, and then that was slightly offset by some. Now, one thing I do want to hit upon, and I've talked about this a lot over the past 5 years, is where we are in our overall strategy. The vestry made a series of different interventions, some of which in staffing, some of which just in focus operations, with the intent that we wanted to not only grow our congregation, but grow the investment of that congregation. Now that investment is in time, talent, and treasure. So it doesn't necessarily always mean being able to invest more from a pledging perspective, knowing that if people get more excited about the church, they get more engaged. And even if they don't have the means to invest more treasure, if they invest more talent and they invest more time, that may beget somebody else investing more treasure or more people coming in. So it's an overall engagement strategy, but the results of that outcome of that strategy is that purely from a financial perspective, we do see an increase in givers and we do see an increase in giving. So using 2016 as the baseline, because that's when we had established the vestry at the time, had established the strategy, giving is up an average of 6% a year. Giving units, so that's total dollar giving, up 6% a year. And that's through 2020 actuals. 2020 budget, you can see 774, the giving was higher. I just showed you how it was $50,000 versus budget. Had we not experienced COVID, had we not experienced the economic downturn that was a part of COVID, we know that giving would have been better on an aggregate average basis. Giving units increased about 6% a year. We did lose a couple of giving units versus what we had budgeted versus those who had pledged, again, because of COVID. Actually, it was big enough to affect the year-on-year average, the CAGR, if you will. This would have been closer to 1% a year had we not experienced COVID. The average pledge has increased by 26%. It now stands at $29,000. And note that this was one of our strategies as we compared our average versus the diocesan average. The Lexington diocesan average now is just 11% away from our average. At one point, it was closer to 35%. So we have seen these measures tell us that we are absolutely on strategy, which is one of the reasons why we keep getting closer and closer to having expenses that are outpaced by income. Speaking of which, I want to get into 2021 now. Now you can see that we do have a budget that has a hurt assumed in it, where expenses outpace income by $41,000. I'm going to start off. I'm going to go through both the income line item and the expenses to tell you where some of these changes are. You can see that income is up $21,000 versus 2020 actuals at $736,000 versus $715,000. Now, if you open up the annual report, you can see the detail, 3 or 4 pages of detail, all within the income statement. But what I want to draw your attention to is specifically within envelope income. Now, again, envelope income is broken into pledgers and non-pledgers. So far, and this is actually a little dated, it's maybe 3 weeks old just because I haven't received an update since then. But so far we have 80 giving units. This could be an individual, this could be a family, who have pledged a total of $271,000. In aggregate, this is 10% higher than what they gave in 2020. So very good news, and everybody is very grateful for their generosity. We have 71 giving units who we feel comfortable are going to be giving in 2021 based on giving patterns, not only through last year, but towards the end of last year. We've not heard from them when they traditionally pledge, or they've not traditionally pledged. We're assuming that that's flat versus 2020. In other words, that they're going to give in aggregate the same amount that they gave in 2020. Now, we feel that that's actually a conservative approach, especially as you look at those who have pledged, where it's up 10% versus 2020. So we feel if all 71 of those were to pledge, that $89,000 would actually be higher. So here's my second time when I am going to ask anybody listening to this who hasn't pledged in 2021 to please consider doing so. As you can understand, $90,000 is a big chunk of our budget, and $90,000 we're guessing on right now. Now, normally we're actually pretty good at that guess. Last year we weren't for very obvious reasons, but it would help us greatly if we had a better understanding of what our income was going to be. We do assume that there are 9 people, for a variety of different reasons, 9 giving units who are not going to give. So they gave an aggregate of $21,000, or on average about $2,000 a giving unit in 2020, and we do not believe that they will be giving in 2021. So that just gives you an idea of the effort that we put into trying to estimate what the envelope income is. One other plug that I want to make is you can see here last year we got $4,200 in this other item. In this other item, we have things like our Kroger Plus card giving and our Amazon Smile giving. You can see here that we have 34 households, and there are way more than 34 households in Trinity, and I'm sure a lot of them shop at Kroger. If you were to point your Kroger Plus card at Trinity, this quarterly donation of $176 would actually increase. So please consider doing that. If you need help doing either of these things, there is information on the Trinity website on how to do it. You go to the little donate button, and there's information on not just how to donate on a regular basis or a one-time basis, but also links to these programs. Amazon Smile is another one. If you typically shop at Amazon, you can see I do 282 orders since I've been in Amazon. That's another way, much like Kroger Plus card, to give to Trinity. But instead of going to Amazon, you go to smile.amazon.com, you hook it up to be attached to Trinity, and you can see that through the life of us generated in this program, we've generated about $1,000. That's $1,000 free dollars for Trinity. It doesn't hurt the shopper at all. It doesn't come out of what I buy or anything like that, just like Kroger Plus. It just helps to benefit the charity. So 2 other ways that you can give. Let me get into expenses right now. You can see in total our expenses are $49,000 more than they were last year. And that really breaks into three key areas. $17,000 for personnel. So while we didn't have an associate for all of last year, we had an interim plan for part of last year. So this now assumes that we have that interim plan of Susan and Shannon and et cetera for the full year. We also do have inflation, where all salaries inflate with the inflation index of any year. It's anywhere from a point or two. And we do have in some of the budgets every year, there are travel stipends that are given. Last year, no one traveled, but we do have that reinstituted within the budget. We have 32,000, I'm sorry, increase versus the previous year's actuals for physical resources. We did have some damage last year from a windstorm. We have to repair the roof. And so what we have assumed in the budget is the deductible from our insurance for repairing the roof. And then we are trying to invest more in physical resources. As many of you are aware, we eradicated the fund that we had generated over a couple of years that was for preventative maintenance projects. It is completely our strategy and our plan to get that built back up and get it more robust than it ever was. Once we get to the point very soon where income is going to be outpacing expenses. But until that time, while there's a schedule that we know what needs to be addressed every single year, there hasn't been money for that schedule. We are investing against that schedule some, where we're doing maintenance and we're starting to do some of those small projects, so we can make sure that we keep up with the physical plant, if you will, of the church. And then we do have some other changes within everything else that basically offsets to almost nothing. It's actually a $3,000 help after you take all of these much smaller changes offsetting each other. And that's it. Very simple. That I wanted to go through high level, but I do want to, let me stop sharing, and I do want to see if there are any questions. If my mouse will just get over here to stop sharing.
Do people have questions for Josh?
All right. Well, if as you go over the annual report or as you get updates in the chimes, or just if anything comes to mind, please feel free to contact me in any way. Be more than happy to give you whatever detail it is that you're looking for. And that also goes out to anybody who hopefully is watching this after the fact.
Can you
Again, that's mitchell.jj@pg.com if you want to email me. My contact information is also in the directory, so you can get in touch with me that way as well.
Okay, gang. Any comments about anything else that we should be concerned about in this annual meeting? This is the perfect time to. I have to give a shout out, and I didn't do this in my annual meeting report, to the staff. This has been an incredible, as we all know, an incredible year, and the staff has really pulled together to do some pretty amazing stuff. And as I said, I think coming out of COVID, we're going to come up with a lot of energy, and a lot of that has to do with the staff and also with the vestry being committed in the midst of this unusual time. So thanks to the staff and the vestry.
I have a question.
Yes,
Are we going to continue Zoom meetings? Will they continue to appoint? And is this an expensive for the church to have these Zoom meetings?
The Zoom meetings are, I think it's $15 a month for each of our accounts. Claire, I can't, the answer is I don't know. There may be some advantage to having hybrid meetings where some people are in person and some people are via Zoom. I'm on a board that does that, a local board that does that routinely. So there are some people in a meeting room, and then there are some people participating via Zoom. But I think the preferable option for many of us, I won't speak for everybody, is to be back in person. But we're not there yet. We might get there soon. But we just have to, hang out on Zoom all together for just a while longer. But we're all getting vaccinated, and I think life will, as I said in my sermon this morning, will return to normal fairly quickly. That's my sense. I don't have any real hard data on that. That's just my sense of what's going on in life. So there's a long answer for an I don't know. Any other questions? Okay. With I'm always available. Josh is available. If you have any questions on the budget, Greg is available. If you have and Rick are available if you have questions about the contributions to the children's home and what's going on and what we're doing in outreach. So, all right. I hope to see you all in church pretty soon. Remember, reservations are opening for Easter and beyond on Tuesday at noon. Okay. We'll have 2 services on Easter at 9 and 11. They'll both be the same. So both with music, the whole Easter experience, and we'll be opening up to 120 people with better social distancing. So people will be closer together, still 6 feet away, but not as far away as they were this morning. So the 23rd, Tuesday at noon. If you have any problems, just let me know. Okay. All right, gang. Say goodbye, and I'll see you in church real soon.